This is our final result. You're going to end up making something along the lines of this in Flash. And here are the instructions. You're going to end up putting this together on this layer. A nice gradient effect for the planet Venus. So I'm going to open up Flash. We're in Pro 8, or you might be in a different version by the time you get this. We're having CS3 soon. So I'm going to create a new Flash document. There we are. I'm going to pull down the window to show all, and that way I can see everything, the whole stage. And this is what we're actually going to end up making. It looks like this. A family on holiday, planet Venus, our Venusian family. They're going to be staying at a Motel 3. There's the craters of Venus. And all of this is done using lots and lots of layers. Not too many layers. Anyway, it's not going to be animated. We're just going to be learning how to manipulate some scenes. So with that in mind, back I go. And if you remember, we're going to create this background layer. So when the slide says to have a default of 550 by 400 pixels, the way you find that out is by clicking on the frame rate here, if it doesn't come up automatically. Right now we're at 12 frames per second. I double click and you can see the dimensions of your movie. So we've got 550 by 400, which is great. And I'm going to put in this Venus postcard. And that will come up at the top here. That's not us saving it though. This is where you would change background color. This is where you would change the frame rate. And the higher the frame rate, the faster the movie moves. Okay, and I'm going to go, okay. No change. Right? So now I'm going to put the background on. To do the background, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to pick up the rectangle tool. And I want the square rectangle tool. I'm going to zoom out just a little tadette. I'm going to draw a square. And you don't usually have to do this, but I'm going to. Draw my square, make sure it covers everything. And I already had that color gradient. So what I'm going to do to show you how to do it, you pull over to color. You go to, the default is solid, right? You pull down and you want linear. You want a linear type. And then up comes this bar. Now to change the color, you double click. And you could change it at that point. Double click to change the color. And if you want more than one color coming in, you could just click and you've got another one. Double click and then click and then double click on it. Where will I go for magenta? Alright. And at that point go back for your paint bucket tool and click. Now that is singularly horrible. Or draw a line and it goes this way, and draw a line and it goes that way, and up here. Okay, that's how you control it. I want to get rid of this, so I click on it and I drag it to the left and then down. I'm going to have two that I'm going to work on. And my planet Venus, as you can see, is going to look like this color background. So back I go, and I double click. I'm going to have a yellow to start with. And then I'm going to have a kind of an apricot color to finish. So that's it. Then I go back for my paint bucket tool and I click. Alright. Now, to get the dark running up to the top, what you do is you click with the paint bucket. You need the paint bucket tool, and you press K to get that. And then you just drag a line upwards. If you wanted it to be downwards, that's what you would do, you see? But anyway, to get the effect, darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, we're on linear effect, click. Double click. I'm going to call this is my background. And that is the end of my background, and I'm going to lock it to make sure that anything else I do is not going to affect the background. And in fact, if you see, I've made it a bit darker. I went in, double click, and I made it something, you know, orangey. And then I applied again. There we go. All right. Now we're going to create what's called the land layer, and this is how I'm going to show you how to create this undulating shape in here. So first of all, background is locked. I'm going to have a new layer. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to call this layer land. Okay. Now I go back. I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I want it this time to be a solid color. So no more gradient for me. Okay. This is where I get the fill color, and I'm going to go for something brown. And I'm going to have no stroke. No stroke at all. So only color fill. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go in, and I'm going to hold, draw a square, and there. Now, if the color doesn't go in, use the paint bucket. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to get the selection tool, not the sub-selection. We want the selection tool, press V on the keyboard, and right now, if you watch the cursor, it's got a four-headed cross at the bottom right. As I go close to a line, it changes. Can you see? I can see that here better. There's a curve. So at this point I can click in it and I can drag it down. So I've got a valley that gives a bit more perspective. Or I can click and I can put it up and I've got a hill. And that's well and good. I can click at the side here. Can you see there's almost a square at the bottom right of the cursor? And I can click in here. At least I could. And I can drag that up. And that's how you do your maneuvering. Okay, but I don't want just a hill, or a valley rather, or just a hill. If you notice, I want a hill and a valley, and I want it to look undulating. So this is what you do. Okay, and you're going to control click on the selection tool. Alright, this is the important bit. You've got to control click. So I've got my selection tool. I go over, I'm holding down control, and I just give it a little jerk. And can you see I've got another point showing there? Another point. And at this point I can go to the sub-selection tool, and now I can drag that down a bit. And I can twist these around. Okay, I'm twisting this is what gives you the groovy effects. Once you've got the extra point. I'm going to go back to my selection tool because this is too big. And there's no right or wrong. You just don't want to have a dead straight line. And this is the one that I've ended up with. A little undulation. Okie-dokie. So I'm going to lock it again to make sure that nothing I do from now on is going to affect that layer. And next we're going to create the craters layer. So we have our, where's my mouse? There, we're going to have a few craters floating around on our surface of Venus. So I get myself a new layer, I double click, and I'm going to call this craters. Okay. And there it is. Now I'm going to get, this time I'm going to get an oval tool. I am going to have a black line, and I'm going to go for a slightly different kind of color. How about this? I mean, folks, make up your own colors, truly. I'm going to work on the gray. So it's like a scratch paper. So there I have my fill. Okay, and then I'm going to go get a line tool, and where is that, my line tool? And then, so I've got my line tool. I'm going to have a solid stroke. I might go up just a little bit, not too much. You know, I'm going to type it in. I'm going to go for 1.5, solid, black. Okay, so what I'm going to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. There's my zoom tool. Go back for my line tool, and I'm going to draw here, I don't want them to be too big. And then out here, right? And then all I do is you have to have the selection tool depressed, and then I'm going to go back in. Once I get that circle, that line at the bottom of my cursor, I know I can pull it in and make it look more like a crater that you would expect to find on the planet Venus. Well, wouldn't you? We've all been to the planet Venus. So I'm going to go back to show all. There is my crater. And at this point I'm going to draw a square around it, and I could move it like this, but I'm going to group it together. So Control G to group it, and I'll show it here so that our English learners or deaf students can see. It's grouped together, so now it's one piece. Alright, and I'm going to put it in here. That looks pretty good. It's a bit big, so I'm going to use the free transform theme, and I am going to, if you hold the Shift key, you'll reduce it proportionally. You may not want to do that. You might want to bring it out. You might want it to be unbearably high. I'm going to scroll it down a bit. There we go. And then there's one taking shape. Now you don't want to be too high because we're going to have our Venusian family. We don't want them tripping over it during their photo call. So at this point, I'm going to copy paste it a few times. Copy, Control C to copy, and then you can paste it. Control V, paste it in the center of the stage, and then Control Shift V, paste it right where it is. So what you do is you get the move tool, and then you can drag another one over. We've got two there. Control Shift V. Something happened. There we are. Got another one, and we're going to transform that to make it look a little bit different. Modify our, there we go, craters a bit. I'm just going to keep doing that a few times. There's a, oops, no right or wrong here. Oh, I need the selection tool to move it. So, and I'll put another one in as well. So give yourself 4 or 5 craters to work on. Nothing too big. And if they're further away, it gives you a better sense of perspective if they're pretty small. And the ones at the front are going to be the biggest. So that kind of makes sense. So the ones at the front are going to be the biggest, and the ones that are supposed to be furthest away are going to be the smallest. I'll put this over here. Okay, and then I'm going to lock my craters, make sure that nothing I do will affect my craters. And next we're going to create our motel. There's 2 JPEGs. Are they JPEGs? I'm not sure if they're JPEGs. Anyway, yes, they are JPEGs. And we're going to not open them. You're going to import them. And then we're going to get rid of, well, you'll see what we'll do. So I want my layer, and this is going to be called motel. There we have it. Everything else is locked. I'm on the motel layer. Okay, I'm going to go File, Import, and I'm going to put them into the library. There's 2 options. Import to stage puts them actually in front of you. Import to library, it's going to put them in here. Okay, so in today's folder, you're looking for motel3sign.jpg and motel JPEG. And there they are. Now, if you can't see your library, go to Windows, Library. Control L will bring it. And if you click on, you get a view of what it looks like. So I'm going to drag my motel, and I'm going to just leave it outside. Now, first of all, I'm going to break it apart, and it's Control B to break it apart. I'm going to do that, and it gives a sort of a grid effect on it, and now you can start doing things. I'm going to make it just a tad smaller so I can work. There we are. Alright, there's my picture, and it's broken apart. So we're going to start chopping off, because we only want the motel and this section. So there's a few things that you could do. You could get the selection tool, and then you could draw, you know, like a square, and get rid of that. Hit the delete key. I took too much off actually. Okay, or you could go in up here, same thing, chop off a bunch of it. Okay. Alternatively, because that leaves you with quite a bit of stuff around here. Okay, so another way to do it is to get the lasso tool. Okay, and then what you do is you click where you want the lasso to chop off. You draw a shape over, and then you go down to the point that you want it to draw a straight line. Here, and then you hit delete. That's another way to do it. So I'm going to click here, draw, and hopefully it'll do a straight line. Yay! Okay, I'm going to zoom in more and just tidy it up a bit. Get my lasso tool again. I'll zoom over. Okay, I click in here. I draw my lasso and it knows to draw a straight line. Yay! Now you might want to just go in and you could erase as well. I mean, you can use the eraser tool just to get rid of a few. So there's a few ways to erase out. Oops, undo. I think I'm happier with my lasso section because I can control it a bit better. And just keep, you know, nibbling away at it till you're happy. And luckily, it really doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to Control Enter, not Control. Oh no! How do I go out? Show all. Okay. So we've got our motel, and then I'm going to move that into place. I'm going to transform it. There's my free transform. I'm going to hold the Shift key to maintain the perspective. Okay. Keep going at it. There we are. And then if I move it down, you can see it's blocking my craters. So I'm going to move the motel layers below the land layer. There we get a nice, oh, isn't that beautiful? Wouldn't you want to spend your vacation on Venus in that very same motel? Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing with the motel sign. So I'm going to drag it in, and then I'm going to use the selection, the rectangle selection, to nibble away at what I don't want. Oh, what did I do? What I didn't do? I didn't break apart. Control B to break apart. And I'll just do it one more time. I have to click on it first, sorry. Selection tool, click, modify, break apart. Control B anyway. So once it's broken apart, then you can start doing whatever you want with it. Eraser, where's the eraser? There's the eraser. There's the selection, the rectangle tool, and there is the lasso tool. So I'm going to zoom in. There we are, a bit more. And I'm going to start nibbling away at what I don't need. That look about right? I just want the sign. Undo. I'm doing the wrong thing. It should be selection tool. I'm sorry. Not the rectangle. Selection tool. There. Dead. Draw another one. One more. Over 1 pixel, please. Fabulous. Fabulous. Nibble, nibble. You know, at this point, I'm going to use my lasso. And I won't do it that way. I should come out, shouldn't I? I'll go out this way, round. There. Bing. So I take it from the stem, I go out. Oh, I've missed some. Never mind, we can go in and nibble at it. Nibble, nibble. Let me zoom in again. Alrighty, I'll take this. I'll stick here. Oh, fabulous. I start here, I go there. Awesome possum. Now, you might want to spend the time just eating away at some of this and even it up a bit. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. I know I haven't done it properly, but I don't want to bore you to death, or any more than I already do. There we go. Ooh, undo. I'll leave it at that. Back out. Show all. There we have it. Now again, I'm on the motel layer. I get the selection tool and I move into place. What have I done? I should, you know this, I need a layer that's called sign, don't I? No, I don't. I just had them both selected. If you have trouble, you may want to think about having your own little layer called sign. I'm going to have to do that, you know, because otherwise the sign goes in front. I want it to go behind. So I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to call it sign. I'm going to go back to motel. I'm going to cut this out, Control X. I'm going to paste it in. Okay. And it's going to go below motel. There. So it looks as if the sign is actually behind the motel. There we are. Okay, I'm going to go back up to craters and I'm going to lock my two. Now whatever works, you don't have to have a separate one if you can live without it, but that's what I ended up doing. Now we're going to create our Venusian family. Okay, and these are the instructions. So we're going to create a green male father, and they've got an antenna and a glowing orb at the top. And then the female in Venus, you may or may not be aware of this fact, but females there are a slight purple color. And to differentiate them between the males, go to the right antenna, the females go to the left. So I'll show you how to do that. So I give myself another layer, I double click, and this is going to be called Alien Family, something along those lines. Everything else is locked. Fabulous. Oh my gosh, I've got a hair appointment soon. So, alrighty, we're going to draw. I'll go back and have a look. Where is my aliens? Now this is the figure that we're going to start working on, and to do that I get my oval tool. Okay, I'm going to have a black line, and then my stroke color is going to be that, and to get it, it's 66 ccc if you want absolute precision. So what I do is with the oval tool, oh, and I lost it. There we go. With the oval tool selected, I'm going to draw an oval. Okay. There. I'm just going to replicate this. If you know how to do it, by all means go. This is a radial gradient on the orb. And I'm going to zoom in to maybe 200% so you can see clearly what's happening. And this is all circles. I'm going to create another circle. Alright, and this is going to be, I'll put it outside here. There. Now I haven't changed the color, so I'm going to have to go in and change it. Alright, I want the stroke to be 1, or even less than that really. I'll make it 1. Okay, solid line, black. Okay, but the color is going to be white. Here, I'll go for that. Then I'm going to take my paint bucket and dump it in. So far so good. Then I'm going to take the line tool and I'm going to go for a hairline, very fine line, and I'm going to draw to start creating the eyelid. Okay, and then I'm going to click inside, and that's kind of split up the circle. I dump the color into the eyelid above, and then I'm going to start drawing the pupil, which is basically a black circle as well. That's all it is. So I'm going to have a black fill, and I take my oval tool and I draw my little circle. It's black. I'm going to zoom in even more. Click, click. And then all I do is I'm going to take my brush tool. I'm going to have no stroke, and I'm going to have a white twinkle. Now you can have any size of brush that you like. I'm going to go for this, and then just go white plop. There. Alright, now I'm going to group all this together. I'm going to go Control, and then I'm going to go Modify Group. Control G to group it. Now it is one. And I'll continue. I'm going to put my eye into the head. Okay, there's my head, and then I'm going to draw the smile, so I simply get the line tool, and I'm going to get a solid line, black, and you draw the line, and then go get the selection tool, and you can pull into a smiley face. And I'm going to have to zoom in because this is too far out. There we are. So selection, there, big happy smile. You know, I'm going to make that 2. There, nice and happy. Out I go again so you can see everything. Now we're going to go for the body, and then I'll do the antenna. So there is my oval tool. I want the color to be a green kind of color. I'm just going to replicate it. You can have your bodies any color you like, you know. Not too chubby because there's no chunky butts on Venus. There we are. Put them up together. They're very low carb up there. Oh, undo. I'm going to group that together. That's Control G and it's all grouped. Oh, I saw what that happened. Look at that. I'm going to have to break it apart. Control B to break apart. Just grab, oops. I need to zoom up, I really do. Okay, Control G to group, shove it into place, and there is my body. Right, now I'm going to draw my antenna. So I get my line tool, and I want the line to be black, I suppose would do. 2 is fine, solid, and then I draw up. You know, I'm going to make that even slightly. I'll make that 3. There we are. And then get your selection tool, and you can start twisting it. There we are. And then to get the orb at the end, I get a little circle, and then I'm going to pull down to, here's my green orb. Okay, and I just go bing at the end there. Is that perfect? Well, now that I've got my symbol, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to group it together, so that's Control G to group. There we have it. And what you could do is, because you want to make 4 people, little ones, you could make them all again, couldn't you? Or you could copy paste them. But that takes up room. We're trying to keep this file as small as possible. So what we'll do is we're going to make this a symbol. And what that will do is put an instance of the symbol. It's a graphic. And we're going to call this alien. And it's going to appear in the library. There it is. So anytime we want, we can pull one out. Okay? For as many as, and it's only, if this is 50 kilobytes, then if you copy pasted 2, that would be 100 kilobytes. And if you had 4, there would be 200 kilobytes. But you can have as many of these instances as you like, and it's only ever going to be 50 kilobytes, which is totally wonderful. Now we're going to use the free transform tool to make them smaller. Okay, I'm going to make, this is the lady. She's going to be slightly smaller. And because in Venus, you may not know this, but you can tell the men from the ladies by the fact that the lady's antenna goes the other way. So we're going to flip it. We got to modify, transform, and we want to flip horizontal. But I don't have anything selected, so let's try again. Modify, transform, flip horizontal. And that is a sure sign that this is a lady. And then we're going to go into, now you can adjust the brightness. You could have her brighter, up to you, or you can have a tint and choose a different color. You might want it to be red or green or yellow. That's how you can change the tints. But the ladies in Venus have a sort of a purpley sort of color. There we are. That's how you can tell them apart from the gentleman. And alpha tints, see it like that? It actually, that reduces transparency. I'm going to go back to tint, or alpha advanced. You can play around. Okay, that is my lady. And then I'm going to do the same for the other two. I'll stop so I don't have to record, and we'll end up with something like this. So I've gone around and I've moved tints, I've changed tints and I've transformed. There's the little boy at the front, and then here's their daughter. So this is our Venusian family, and I'm going to draw a square around them. I'm going to group them together, Control G to group. Alright, and I'm going to put them into the picture, and there they are. And we're almost finished now. We're going to create our text, and then we're going to have a look at some filters and drop shadows and so on, and it'll end up looking absolutely spiffy. So I'm going to lock new, and this is going to be called greeting. Kidoki. Here's my text tool. There we are. Now I start drawing. I type inside it, and it's going to be, what am I going to say? Greetings from Venus, exclamation mark. I go back and I highlight it. I want to have I'm going to go for a yellow and some kind of a, oh, that looks nice, doesn't it? Trekker 2. Trekker, that sounds, Trekker Frontier. I'll go for Trekker 2. And I'm going to make it nice and big. Greetings from Venus. What do you think about that? Ooh. When you're happy, I'll make this centered. There we are. Okay, pull this into place. Greetings from Venus. Now, yellow text on a yellow background is a graphic designer's nightmare, but I'm going to show you how to put some filters in. So on the properties taskbar, you click on filters, and right now you've got none, so you click on the plus, and you can play around with these. We're going to have a drop shadow in here, and this is where you change the angle. Okay, and this is the distance. Whenever you're happy. And I'm also going to put in, maybe I want a bevel. You might want a glow. Bevel would do it. Yep, maybe I want, can I get a stroke from here? How about my glow? And that's how you would control the glow. Actually, red looks pretty nice.